call roll. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Gig Harbor City Council retreat of Thursday, September 22nd. The time is 2:04 p.m. and I will turn it over to our city clerk for a roll call.
Councilmember Barber.
Here.
Councilmember Denson.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Likens.
Here.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Storsett.
Here.
And Councilmember Wook.
Here.
We have all 7 present.
Great, and I would like to welcome back Marilyn Beard. Thank you so much for joining us today, as well as our city attorney, Daniel Kenny, and our city administrator, Katrina Knutson. And I think I have everybody. So Marilyn, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me back. And we have a little bit different focus for today. It's following on from the last meeting. As you recall, in the last meeting, we completed the success signals communication style exercise. And you each talked about how you do and don't want people to talk to you. And I guess that's been shared with you. And actually, when I was transcribing it, there was a lot of overlap. You know, people sticky notes. A lot of people said ask me questions. So transcribe those, and those got to you. And then you discussed the possibility of developing a council code of conduct. And we had provided some samples from some other cities. And then we had a discussion about what elements would be important to you to have included in that code of conduct. So I took those notes, transcribed those notes, and sent them to Katrina, to the city administrator, so she could use that to draft some language for you to look at today. So that's what you have, and I know you got that yesterday. It's a draft, and I think it's probably at this point a pretty rough draft. And so today you can spend some time talking about it, and I'll kind of help you with that conversation. So the retreat for today, what I'd like to do is to have you review and discuss the draft update to your council rules based on what you said from your last session, and I'll ask you some questions about that. And then we're going to go into the second half of the meeting and talk about how you might apply those principles to conflict situations, things where you have to have a hard conversation, and how to have those conversations. So as was last time, meeting agreements, the meeting is inclusive. You all participate, allow others to do so. Because this is virtual, I've asked the staff to ping me if I'm not seeing you raise your hand. So raise your hand if you have something you have a question or you have something to add, and I'll try to keep track of that. And then we value diverse opinions, and I expect that you're going to have some today, and that's okay. If you disagree with somebody, make sure that you understand what they're saying, then offer your viewpoint and try to find areas of commonality. Be with us, be present. It helps to have your camera on for me. And so I appreciate that. And remember what you learned from the last session about communication styles and about how you can honor other people's preferred styles, and also be aware of your own style and how you send signals when you communicate. So we'll see what you retained from the last session. So with that, the meeting agenda for today, this is just the agenda overview. I have a real quick icebreaker to do. We'll take the notes, talk about the notes from the September 8th meeting, and review the draft policies that were sent to you, take a break, and then we'll move into managing conflicts and how to communicate well, and how to solve some conflicts. And then we'll talk about next steps, and then we will adjourn by 5 o'clock. So any questions about the agenda before we go?
No questions, Marilyn, but would you like me to call on council members as they raise their hands? Because I can see them on my
Yes.
screen. Okay.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Okay.
No problem.
Okay. So this is your icebreaker. So let's get started. So I know you're all like in front of your computers. So I want you to choose an object that is within arm's reach from where you are right now. So don't move, don't get up, move around. And just choose an object and grab it. And I'm going to ask you to take not more than 3 minutes to answer these 3 questions. Why you chose that? What object did you choose? Why did you choose that object? What it means to you, and why it's within arm's reach. Okay, so everybody grab something, and I'll go first just to demonstrate how this is for me. It made total sense to me what I would grab, and that's a sticky note. And because it's always right next to me, I have sticky notes by me all the time, and I use them all the time. And I think they should be called memory pads now, because that's how I remember things. You know, I'll think about something, I can write it down, and I have it on a sticky note. And I use it a lot, and that's why it's within arm's reach in pretty much every place I sit down. So that's my story. What do you got? You want to go first? Mayor?
Who wants to go for Robin? She
Okay.
beat us.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Well, I'm in my car, so I apologize for not having my camera on, and I hope everyone is doing well. So I'm practicing my friendly communication skills. So I'm in my car, and so I grabbed a sachet of dried lavender that is on my dashboard because I love to, kind of squeeze it and smell it. I love the smell of lavender. Did I answer all of the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Councilmember Barber.
Well, I grabbed my Ricola honey herb cough drops today because they're not very far from me, because I want to be able to be part of this and not have a coughing fit. So that's also why my camera's going off. Hopefully
Thank you
they
for
won't be
joining.
around me within another few days.
Oh, glad to have you, Mary. I hope you're feeling better soon.
Thank you.
Councilmember Storsett.
All right, thank you. Well, so my location in itself, I have a lot of things, trinkets within short range. I mean, it's all the things my wife won't let me keep in the house. And I will start. I actually am going to take 2 since we have 3 minutes. I think you guys will find this humorous, since you all received the same thing as me. But once you take the oath to be a council member, they mail you a certificate. So it's not the certificate that I'm going to show you, but it's the manila envelope that I have framed that says
Oh,
the
that's
Honorable Seth Storsett. And I just find it's
Good.
somewhat humorous because people can, yes, there it is, Brenda. And so I think it's just kind of funny. I mean, the certificate obviously is of great value, but it didn't say the Honorable on this certificate, but it did on the manila envelope. So that is what I have framed. And then to switch out, because I've got another one that I'm really proud of. This is a trophy that I won in Alaska. Why it's close by, obviously, like the same as the other, a great memory. So we had an axe throwing competition at a resort, and it was really fun. I won the competition, so I jokingly say that I'm the Alaska state champion, that axe throwing. And it still lights up, so it's pretty cool. But this was funny to carry on Alaska Airlines on the way back. The stewardess took good care of me. All right, thank you.
Nice. I love it. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Well, I have a little thumb drive here that contains a video of a one-man show. And it's quite touching. It's maybe you better come back to me.
You're gonna make me cry, Lee. Every time you do that, it makes me want to cry. Okay, I'll come back to you. Councilmember Wook.
Yes, thanks. So I don't know if you can see this, but this is some glitter washi tape.
I
And
love washi tape. It's the best.
it's on my desk because, well, I like glitter and shiny things. It makes me happy. And washi tape is everywhere in my world. And so being an artist, I have lots of glittery and happy things. And that's why it's within my arm's reach. because you never know when you need to put washi tape on something. So that's why it's there. Thank you.
That's great. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. I grabbed this master lock. Let's see, there we go. You can't, oh, there we go. So I grabbed this master lock, and you may say, well, so what? What it meant to me is I found this lock and it had been locked and there was no combination. So if you look on the back, there's one of these combinations. There's four dials here, and each one has 9, actually 9 plus 0. So over the last probably 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, I just had it on my desk, and I started at 0, 0, 0, and then I'd go to 0, 0, 0, 1 and pull the lock. Nope, didn't go. Just kept doing that. Sometimes I wouldn't do it for a month, and sometimes I would do it, 3 or 4 times a day. Or if I was really bored, I might do it for half an hour. So it was such a good feeling when I hit 6,101 and the lock opened. So what it means to me is it was a challenge that I kind of muscled through, persevered. You could say that's kind of weird, and why it's in arm's reach, it's pretty heavy. It's brass, and I've got a lot of receipts on my desk, and I like my windows open in my office, and so the wind blows them. So instead of coming into the room with receipts all over the floor, I just put this on top of it. So that's why this is an interesting thing. It has a good, solid, smooth, heavy feel, like there's something here.
So that's a very
Nice.
green thing, Roger. Very green.
Love it. Let's come back to Councilmember Rodenberg.
Well, I changed it up because I wasn't ever going to get through that one-man show. It was from Mike Mitchell. And it just tells the story of him in Vietnam. But object is this little carving. I don't know how well you could see it, but it's carved out of a mastodon tusk. And my wife got it for me, and it's 2 little polar bears that are wrestling. And it just means a lot to me because my wife got it for me, but I just love old stuff. And to think that this was a tusk of a mastodon is amazing to me. And I look at it and it really gives you a sense of time and how we are just a speck of time compared to eternity and a million years ago when this thing was running around spearing cavemen. So I like it. I like this kind of old stuff. So there you go. And I think Seth probably knows the video that I'm speaking about. It's his one-man show. Seth, you know Mike pretty well. And it's
Yeah, I do.
Touching.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about, but you got me all choked up, so I don't want to talk too much either here.
okay.
You have to tell the story later, though, some other time. Thank you, Lee. Councilmember Likens. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. I said it's a hard act to follow such a touching story. So that's, everybody's showing a little bit of blue today, and I like that. So I also have that envelope, so that's pretty funny, but it's tucked behind something. It's not framed because it makes me laugh when I see the honorable in front of my name. And then I grabbed my coffee or tea mug because I'm often just needing a little bit of something warm to keep me centered. And then this, my kids gave to me. I have pictures of my family. It says, "I love that you're my mom." And they gave this to me when they were really little. And it sits in my drawer. So each time I open my drawer, I see this. So just makes me feel good. Right.
That's awesome. Well, mine is not touching at all. The first thing I grabbed is a box of crackers, which you probably can't see. It's the closest thing to me because I just got back about 20 minutes ago from Richland, where I was at a conference yesterday. and overnight a couple nights. And so I didn't get a chance to eat lunch. So this is important to me because it will keep me awake and my stomach from growling during this meeting. So there you go. Katrina
All
or
right.
Daniel, did you have anything you wanted to share?
I I chose this little orange wiffle ball that is signed by none other than Adam Blodgett from our Shake Shot Tea Party that the police department put on today outside at lunch. And we had, I don't know, maybe 60 city staffers show up, and 3 of our council members were there, and it was a lot of fun. And this means a lot to me because the staff mean a lot to me, and being able to have fun and have some fellowship with them and just get us all together again. It just, I might choke up, but just means a lot. And it's within arm's reach because it just happened today.
Nice. Daniel, I saw you go off mute for a minute. There you go. Oh, you're off mute, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So that it's funny because that actually goes to what I had in my hand. It's my new AirPods, Apple AirPods.
Oh,
I chose them because I got them because I sit on video calls all day. And it means that I sit at my computer all day and it's within arm's reach because I'm constantly trying to put them in and take them out and whatnot. But when I'm on Zoom or Teams or whatever, all my settings always get changed when I go to a different program. And I knew that was going to happen, but I hadn't talked yet, so I didn't know. But I should have them closer at hand so I can always turn them off if need be.
that's great. Thanks, everybody.
Well, I think it's good to hear somebody else has troubles with the earbuds that change, that automatically sync up with things that, oh, I didn't know I did that, but okay. So I tend to stay with the old fashioned headphones, and I know that's really untechnological to me. So we're going to move now into the draft document that was sent to you by Katrina, and with some using the things that you said. Katrina, did you want to do any introduction to this?
Sure. Thank you so much, Marilyn. Essentially, Council, the draft that was sent to you yesterday was solely based on that one-page sheet of whiteboard notes from all the feedback from all of you at our last meeting. And you can see I have little check marks and circles to ensure that I didn't miss anything on here. So essentially just that this document, as I said in the email, is not perfect. I would agree with Marilyn that it is a draft, 100%. And but it should be representative of the feedback that you council gave at the last retreat. And Marilyn, I'm happy to share my screen, and if you'd like to go through that.
So I have slides with the text on them if you want to use that.
Perfect.
And I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to take a look at them. So did everybody have the opportunity to look at the draft? Is there any, say, nod your head so that the mayor can say you said yes. And so I did transfer the content onto slides, and we can work with that if we want. It's a little bit small, so it's not the best, but we have it. And then Jenny already had started the conversation by suggesting some alternative wording. And I didn't know if you had a chance to look at that. And if not, I also have that on a slide, so you can look at that when we get to that part of the conversation. But before we get into any specific changes or comments about the draft, what did you think generally about the draft? I mean, what struck you? First of all, do you think it reflected what you said at the last meeting? This is where you raise your hand. Oh, thank you, Mary.
Yes, and Do you want them to just kind of shout out or everyone raise their hand, and what do you think?
Yeah, just raise your hand and then we can, we can
Okay.
stay, organized about it.
Sure.
Could
Sounds
we
great.
drop the screen maybe, just so we can see everybody? Or if you were going to put stuff up, I just see oh, there we go. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yes, Mary, thank you. Sorry about that.
I'll turn. So I think that this was a really, really good first step, and I think it covered the draft as it was sent to us covered a lot of what we talked about, if not everything that we talked about. And I really think that it's important for us to put this together in such a way that it's in the council guidelines, but I think we should also separate it as a code of conduct, something, I don't know if that's the right wording, but that we all, by adopting it, we put it on the website so that everyone knows that this conduct and behavior is what we have agreed to lead by. And I was really pleased with the work that staff did on this. It's not easy to take everything that was said and put it into a document. So I appreciate everything that was done.
Okay, and so that's a good point. A question I had too, Mary, about where does this go in the scheme of things? And you need to, if you adopt something, you need to adopt it formally somehow. But where do you want to have it? I mean, where do you want to present it? I think that's a good idea to make it accessible for the public.
I think it strengthens our commitment to it if we do it that way.
Thank you. Councilmember Wook.
Yes, thank you. So I guess everybody knows that I had a little issue with the first two red paragraphs. I don't think, especially the second red paragraph was what I heard at the last retreat we had. These paragraphs, I think, are taken verbatim from a city in Wisconsin. And for me, the second red paragraph leaves out the citizens and leaves out the elected official part of what we are and who we are about. And so I had real issue with that. I sent around some different wording. I don't know if that it was interesting to anybody or not, but I'd like to see us maybe work on the second red paragraph. I just don't think that's, I don't think that sounds like Gig Harbor to me. We are all here, obviously, because we are elected officials. And it's my understanding that we have the right to be elected officials in the way that works for each of us. And I think we need to insert that somewhere into this document. And I didn't see that. The second paragraph, red paragraph, is something I didn't see us talk about. And I think it needs work.
Okay, so we will talk about that. Hold up those thoughts, and we will talk about those specific changes. Any other general impressions from anybody else?
Yes, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. Compliments to Katrina for, so on page 5, the public service agreements. I know we had often talked about code of conduct, but I think some of us were chatting and code of conduct sounds a little bit maybe punitive or grade school like. So I appreciate public service agreement. I think it's more professional, gets to the point just as well. And then Marilyn, on your slide, you have draft code of conflict. Did you mean conduct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was looking at that thinking, I don't get that.
Oh, man, that's like almost a Freudian slip, because we're
Maybe.
talking about conflict in the second half of the meeting, but not yet. But thank you for that.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, I read this as well as the email that Jenny sent out, and I don't care if it comes from Wisconsin or I don't care if it comes from San Diego. I think attitude, morals, and ethics are the important thing, not necessarily where they come from. So we should look at it for what it is, not say that we don't want to be Wisconsin. I think this suits Gig Harbor very well. I don't mind the terminology code of conduct because that's kind of what it is. But what I didn't see, and I don't know how we would do this, but if we all agree that we should be behaving or conducting ourselves in this ethical manner, and one of us violates that, there's nothing here that says what happens. I mean, we can all say that person violated this, but so what? You know, I mean, I think it isn't like you can put a punishment in there or something.
Mhm.
I don't think it goes necessarily far enough. I had one other thing that escaped my mind, but it'll come to me and I'll raise my hand again. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good point and a really hard one, and something I was hoping that you would talk about a little bit more about. So now what do you do with these? What does any city council do with something like this? Anybody have any, did you find anything? This is kind of an oxymoron. Did you find anything that was missing? Do you think that there's something that, other than the accountability piece, which is maybe something that could be added so here's what happens?
Accountability was the word I was looking for.
Okay.
Councilmember Likens?
Yes, first, I just want to say I agree with Roger. I liked the wording and the way that it came around. And I do think that it might be nice. I know we're going to add the media policy and social media later. I think it would be nice to put something in about of an evaluation, that this is something we revisit or we look at once a year. We kind of make a commitment to it. We talk about, is it meeting our needs? Is it where we are as a council? Does everybody feel like it has? That there be some type of evaluation feedback loop within this, to make sure that, you know, we say, yes, we affirm council, and that, you know, we could just look at it on a regular basis. I think that would help.
Thank you. I don't know what this is worth, but I was at a really great AWC Mayor's Conference yesterday, and there were a lot of people sharing about their councils and some challenges that they're facing with their councils. And really the main takeaway, because there were a lot of mayors asking the same question, you know, what do I do when a council person kind of goes off the rails or does this or that, or someone's trying to be an eighth, or, you know, what do we do when the mayor's trying to be an eighth council person? How does the council handle that? And kind of, you know, talking about both, you know, back and forth. And it kind of came down to, you know, really the council is responsible for themselves, and the mayor really shouldn't intervene a whole lot in council squabbles and fights, you know, I mean, during a meeting, yes, you have to run the meeting and you make sure that things are going according to Robert's rules, but really the accountability comes from the council members themselves. And just, if you don't like what someone is doing, call them up and tell them, you know, privately. Try your best to not do it publicly in a meeting. You know, if you can resolve it in a private way, that's usually the best way. And there were 50 mayors in that room, and they all said, you know, this is what's worked the best for us, is just letting our council kind of police themselves and trying not to get too involved. And if need be, bring in city administrator, bring in city clerk, bring in city attorney for help. But really just being respectful of each other and understanding that if you adopt, the majority of council adopts these, then it's adopted and everyone is expected to abide by these things. And that's the expectation. And then if there is a person that is not then abiding by these, then the council can have a conversation about that. Not, you know, obviously not breaking OPMA laws, but first contact that council person individually. And if that's not working, call a special meeting and you guys hash it out. And that's kind of how they were giving their advice into AWC and the mayors that I was with. So love your thoughts on any of that feedback as well. But that's where I see the accountability piece coming in, is the council being accountable to each other is the most important and the best way to kind of handle these things. So Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yes, I remembered what I wanted to say, and I'm not sure if I misunderstood, but I probably need a little clarity on Councilmember Wook's comment that we need to behave or conduct ourselves in what works best for us. I really disagree with that. I think we need to behave and conduct ourselves in what works best for the city and the people that elected us, not necessarily our own personal selves. Now, I may have misunderstood her comment, but if I did, here I am to listen.
Councilmember Wook.
Yeah, thanks. I can go ahead and explain that again. Absolutely. I believe that we're each of us here to be responsible to the citizens who elected us. That's the way, I think that's really important. And each of us have our own style in which way we do that. And that is our right to have our own style in being responsible and accountable to our citizens. That's number one. And then to work together well. But we each have our own style, and we need to be sure that we recognize that style and we honor the fact that we do have our own done in a way, but we may do things a little differently. And as Daniel has told me, that it is legal and it is our right to be council members in our own style.
So let me jump in here real quick and say, I'd like to wait a little bit to get into this particular topic because it's about, because we're going to talk about how you talk about differences in opinion and conflicts and how you approach that conversation and how to do it in a way that you hear each other and that you can actually get somewhere with it. And so I'm going to give you a couple little tools to think about and use. So, and this is actually not a good conflict, but it's an apt conflict that you have different views. You and Lee have different views. That's very clear. And so to figure out if there's a way to talk about it so you can actually move forward with it and understand each other about why you feel the way that you do. So Lee, I didn't mean to jump on your statements, but if you can just hold this thought on this particular item, we'll come back to it.
All right.
Thank you.
So anybody else have any reactions to that draft? Couple people we haven't heard from yet. It's all good. All good, Roger. All good, Seth. All good.
Not seeing any hands.
Okay.
Oh, now
Roger,
they're in. Roger.
Well, you called my name.
Okay.
You want us to talk about other things, or are we still on the first part and you want just overall general?
I just overall general impressions, and then we'll get down to some, we'll work next into some detailed kind of things about, wording or something that, how you would add something about accountability. What does that look like? So does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, so then the sort of changes that you would want to see, and I don't know if you had the chance to mark it up or, if you have certain things that you want to, like wordsmithing things that you want to do. That's kind of a finishing touches thing, is the wordsmithing to get the words just right. But in terms of what seems to be a missing piece, is the accountability and how do you hold each other accountable. I think that I mean, I think there's elements of what's in there that kind of tells you about how to do it, but if you want to be more direct about it, about, kind of things that Mayor, you were talking about if you don't like something somebody is doing, then you need to have a conversation with them, a productive conversation, and work it out so that it works for everybody. And so we'll talk a little bit again more about that later, but so I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of, I like the idea of coming back to it and recommitting to it periodically. And when you adopt it, it becomes your rules of behavior. And, not only you need to, the mayor's right, you need to be accountable to yourself. You need to police yourself. You need to help each other police themselves, remind them of it in a kind way. And once you've shared it with the public's maybe going to hold you accountable and say, this doesn't look like what you said you committed to, that once you make it a public document. And so those are the kinds of ways that I could see you doing it. But interesting. So about how, so I was thinking maybe Mary, you came back with all the answers from the AWC Mayor's Exchange.
I don't think I have all the answers.
Do you have any answers at all? I don't think that there's a right or a wrong way. I think every council has to figure it out for themselves. And it feels a little awkward at first to be looking at these things and to somehow feel like you're going to have to, hold people accountable and, do some kind of public something, and you don't have to do that. I think to the extent that you come back and revisit them and you talk about, and when somebody does something that really demonstrates the heart and the intent of the adopted rules, I think that that's a good thing to call out and say, boy, that was really great what you did. Now that was respectful. I appreciate that conversation. I appreciate how you presented that. And I think that's one way that you can reinforce it rather than calling out people. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a little more positive reinforcement.
Yeah. One solution that one mayor brought up that she found helpful was there was a particular issue with a council member and they had tried to talk to them privately and it wasn't working. And this council person was doing extremely crazy things, probably bordering on illegal. Maybe it was kind of nuts, but they couldn't get it together. They could not get this person to understand what was going on and that they were really putting the city at risk, and they just couldn't get him to calm down. And so they started to meet with the mayor in groups of 2 or 3 council members to try to, instead of dragging it into the public, they just took it one step further and had individual meetings so they didn't violate any OPMA, to kind of, and then invited this council person to come to each one of those to be able to sit down face to face, but like with a moderator, and the mayor acted as the moderator. Doesn't mean that I have to do that ever. If people would rather meet with another staff person or Katrina or whoever, that's fine. But they were able to work it out that way because they were able to sit down face to face with this person, but with a couple other council people present. So it wasn't like ganging up on the person. They just were trying to really understand where this guy was coming from. And so they were able to understand after having a lot of conversations. And that way, all the council members got to speak to this person, but with someone else in the room. And they were able to finally figure out what was going on. And then the person was able to hear from their other council members why this was such a big deal, and they were able to work it out. So it really is whatever you need to do that works for your council and your city, your administration, and try your best not to bring it into public if you don't have to. So that was just another idea, another solution that another mayor had that worked for them.
So one of the things I heard you say was they talked about it enough and they listened, And when they finally figured out what the core issue was, they were able to move past it.
Yes.
And that is at the core of what we're going to talk about in a minute. I think we need to go there pretty soon because I think it's going to help the conversation.
Councilmember Rodenberg?
Yes, we're talking about keeping things out of the public, and I agree with that. You don't like to have your dirty laundry out there, but when some behaviors are noticed by the public, there might, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think the public is not going to take action, or they will probably tolerate borderline bad behavior to a 6 before they ever contact anybody else, except maybe their neighbors and maybe the person across the street. They're not going to go public with it until it's a 9 or a 10. And recently, in the last week or so, we've seen that. So I think that keeping it out of the public eye is not being transparent. I think that, it's just a fine line between airing your dirty laundry and letting the public see that we are policing ourselves with things that they notice that it appears like we tolerate because we're not doing anything about it. Well, to them, we're not doing anything about it. We might have internal conversations amongst ourselves, but the public doesn't see that. They think we tolerate it. And so those of us on council get thrown into the same basket as a person that was doing the violation. And I don't like my name to be associated with some of that stuff. So we need to look at what's public and what's not. And
Fully understand your point of view there.
thanks. Oh,
Councilmember go
very
ahead.
nice.
Sorry.
Thank you very much for appreciating my point of view. Knowing the rules
Of
conduct.
course. I appreciate all your points of view. Councilmember Starset?
Yeah, and Lee, thanks for speaking up on that. And I agree with your comments. Just want to add into it. And of course, I missed the last hour and a half of our first meeting. I did watch it. So you guys did some great work, some real work in there. I know these can be difficult conversations. But I really wanted to really double down on, we do, as a city council, we're all individuals, of course, we've each been elected. But when a council, even if it's an individual or if it's multiples act in a certain way, it's a reflection on all of us. And it can have very negative connotations, styles or approaches that we think are legal, really still might not be, I'm not comfortable with. And I'm not going to go in the same route as that to try to get people fired up and feel conviction for what I feel that's targeted, biased, and fear-based. And I've said that before in council sessions, and that's what I'm not okay with. And I think that's the general sense of the majority of the council. Don't want to vote for everybody, but I think that's why we're here.
Thank you, Councilmember Starset. Appreciate that. Councilmember Barber?
I completely agree with what Seth and Lee have said. I think that style is one thing, but when any of our styles conflict with the oath of office that we've taken and the fact that we are leaders for all the residents of the city of Gig Harbor, I think that then we've overreached on a style. And if we all agree that we're going to act in a certain way and we're going to behave in an ethical and above board manner, we all need to agree to it and we all need to continue to do it.
Thank you, Councilmember Barber. Councilmember Likens?
Yes, thank you, Tracy. So I hear what the last, my fellow council members, the last three have said, and I really appreciate it. But I also feel that when, or if you're frustrated, or any of us become frustrated at another council member, I hear that what we were going for was to approach that person personally in private to try to understand their point of view before, it goes out into the public eye of needing to work things out in a meeting. I hear from people sometimes venting, and my response to them is, have you called that person? Have you talked to that person? You know, it's just kind of that respect of, I want to hear you, I want to understand you. And I think there's a fine line between being frustrated and
Councilmember Likens, something has happened to your microphone. Can you hear us? Something's happened to your microphone. You barely.
No,
Well, there you go.
Maybe try again.
did you not hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you. I don't know what happened there.
I
for a
think
minute.
it's my
It went into a-
AirPods. Hang on.
Ah, there we go. It's the AirPods.
There
again.
we go. Oh my gosh, that's so terrible. Just after we were all talking about that. Did you hear anything I said?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just
yes.
the last like few sentences I think were cut out.
Okay. It's probably because I was playing with this little box, like nervously, probably. But I just want to say, I think we owe each other that just personal respect first. And sometimes, you know, we all vent and we all have frustrating days, but I feel like if we're frustrated with a person, talk to them. I'd like to see that happen more.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other hands raised, Marilyn.
Okay, so I think what I want to do is to pivot a little bit here and talk about conflict conversations and how to approach those. And then we can come back to the discussion about, you know, so what do you want to do with these rules, and how do you want to change them, or do you want to change them? So I'm going to fast forward to managing conflicts. This is about I love this little cartoon. It's like, I forget, are we the kisses or the hugs? Football. So conflict happens. It does. It just does. And there's really nothing to say that you can't really get around it. It can lead to better solutions. It can bring light to different perspectives. But the ability of a team and your team to work through conflicts in a productive way is really important. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like when you're doing good conflict resolution. Constructive conflict is the ability to disagree on important decisions or issues, and to get to some kind of understanding of each other's position. And whether or not you agree with that person entirely, you've listened to each other, and you've heard them. And I think for leaders, I would say that they should, if you're leading a team, you should encourage a little bit of productive tension to get to the best solutions. But it requires very honest conversations and very sincere conversations. And then go back to your colors and say, go back to your books and look at how your color and how other people's colors handle conflict, because it's really very different. So this is a kind of a spectrum of a continuum of conflict. I don't know if you can see this okay. You go from, no conflict, which is artificial harmony, staying in the shallow end of the pool, if you will. There's constructive conflict, and then you get to the midpoint, and then it starts moving towards destructive conflict and devolves into mean-spirited personal attacks. And you want to be ideally a little to the left of the midpoint when you're trying to resolve conflict. Conflict is okay because it resolves differences and it gets everything on the table. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. And you know that you each handle conflict differently. And so, celebrate that and honor that. I talked about the triangle of satisfaction last time. about when you're talking about something, the source of the conflict could be the substance of the issue. It could be that you disagree on the right or wrong answer to something, what you should do about something. Sometimes it's procedural and it's right, okay, so we could disagree on the substance of this topic, but it was unfair. I didn't like the process and how we got there and how we got to that answer. And so if it's procedural, then you have to take care of it at that level. And then the final one is emotional, and that is, I don't like the way I was treated. I deserve more respect. My feelings were hurt. I felt that you were, not saying that you were criticizing me, and that was very difficult for me. It's a very emotional place you're coming from. And if you are not getting it right on the procedural or emotional, if somebody's feeling wronged or they feel that the process wasn't fair, you're not going to get to the substance of the problem. And as a council, your job is to get to the substance of things and to resolve issues and make policy for the community. And so it's not like everybody gets stuck in this triangle at some point. And so what you want to do is to try to tease out, and it's just what the mayor was talking about, is teasing out. So what is at the heart of the issue? Are you mad about the process we used? Are you mad? Were your feelings hurt? Are you, what is it? And so that's another thing to think about. And so to getting to yes, when you're trying to get to yes, try not to start with no. And in government, we're really good at starting with no, particularly for our customers. No, you can't do that. Don't start with no. Be clear about the underlying needs driving the other person. So why do they feel, what do they need? And why do they feel that way? Why is that important to them? If you are, if you are disagreeing with how somebody's seeing something, ask why they think something is true. Test their underlying assumptions and try to get into a cycle of listening, paraphrasing, listening again, and then confirming. Did I get, so is that what you're saying? Even whether you agree with it or not, people need to know that they're heard. And so you need to paraphrase back to them what you heard. And ask them, why do you think that is true? And what have you seen or heard that leads you to believe that? So test their assumptions. Translate wants into interests, and wants and demands are at the end. That's where you're going to get to the point, but you have to understand the underlying interests and why the issue is so important to that person. What are they interested in? And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit now. And you're going to, hopefully you can lead others to solve their own problems rather than solving them for them, if you listen and you really understand well where they're coming from. And you can find the common ground. So I have a list of questions here, suggestions about how to start a difficult conversation. And the first thing that I always think of is, what was my part in it? I need to own my part, whatever that is. I need to think about that pretty hard, because it's almost never all about just the other person. You always have a part in it. And just sort of admitting that you have or asking about what was my part in it, it really opens up the conversation. Always assume the best intentions on other people's parts, even though what their behavior is annoying to you or not helpful. Assume best intentions. Get information and give information. Exchange information about what is happening. Give some feedback. Stick to the facts and agree on them. Okay, so facts are different than opinions, but it's really, if you don't agree on the facts of the case, you're not going to get anywhere to solve the underlying interests. Admit when you're wrong. It's okay. It's like, oh, I guess, yeah, I could see how you would feel that way. And that was wrong. And so I can change that. And then move to solutions. So, it's a conversation where you say, what's my part in it? Assume the best intentions, get information, give information, and stick to the facts and agree on them, and admit when you're wrong. So the way that often if I'm having a conflict, when I talk to people about having conflicts with other people, and I know that somebody they look upset with me, and there's something wrong. They're just avoiding me or whatever it is. And while this takes some guts and the right frame of mind, I would always start with approaching them and saying, so you seem, is there something that I did that made you mad? Or what have I done? Or what could I be doing differently? Because it seems like you're avoiding me, or you're mad, or what is it? And then listen to them. Let them answer the question. And often the times, sometimes you'll think somebody's mad at you and they're not. It's just that they're having a hard day, or they're, something else is going on in their life. And then sometimes they'll say, yeah, when this happened, I didn't like that. I didn't like when this happened. When you said this, I felt this way. And then, so then start to talk about it and then paraphrase back to them. So what I understand you're saying is this: when I said this is how you felt. I could see how you could feel that way. I apologize for that. And here is what, let me help. I want to make sure that you understand and I understand what you're saying. And we should talk more about the substance of this conversation and what we're disagreeing about, or what is at stake. And really say, the paraphrasing part is really important. And to try to take, particularly if you can take somebody else's comments that come across as maybe inflammatory or accusatory, and try to neutralize that somehow. And I'm going to work with you a little bit on how to do that and what that looks like, so that by the end of the conversation, you can hear each other, and you acknowledge your differences, and you can move on. But that's the start of how you move on, is you have to get the core of what's bugging this other person, and what do they want, and what do they need, and what do I want, and what do I need, and how is your behavior impacting me, how's my behavior impacting you, and so forth. So with that, I'm going to leave this on the screen, and I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to have you take a few minutes to think about and let's take, this conversation between Jenny and Mary, Jenny and whoever, about Jenny. And I'm going to help you have a conversation about that, because it seems to be going in circles a little bit. And I think it's important to try to apply these principles and see if you can. It's not easy. It may be really different than what your natural tendency is to do, but take on your side of it. And so I think I'll just work with a couple of you. And Jenny, I'm going to ask you some questions. In the meantime, we're going to take a little break, a little bit early, and take about 10-15 minutes. And I want each of you to think about how, let's have the conversation that we were having about behaviors of the council. And it's I'm going to say it, Jenny, you probably feel like you're being, the fingers are pointing at you. Do you feel that way?
I do.
Okay. So, and what does that, when that happens, and you feel fingers are being pointed at you, how do you feel about that? I mean, what does that make you think about? How do you feel?
I just feel like retreating.
Uh-huh.
Not being part.
It's a very green thing you're talking about, Jenny. That you retreat,
Yeah.
but what else?
Well, I would say that my passion for this community and these citizens and why I got into being a council member and why after 4 years of being a council member, these citizens appreciated my keeping my promises enough to reelect me with a 74% of the vote that said they like what I'm doing, they like the way I'm doing it, they like me reaching out to them because those are the promises that I made to them when I ran for council. And that's what they expect from me. And that is my method, and that's who I am. I work for the citizens of Gig Harbor. That is my passion and my goal, because before I was on the council, I saw the citizens of Gig Harbor not being listened to, not being respected. And so I promised the citizens when I was elected that I would listen to them and that I would respond to them and I would make sure they always knew what was going on in the city.
Okay, so you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And you're not, you're passionate about being connected with the community, and you've talked a lot about making a promise to the community
Right.
about what, and that's important. And that there was a time when the council, you felt that the council wasn't listening to the community.
A former council.
A former council. Okay, so that's a good clarification too.
Yeah.
And so then, and you're on a one-woman journey to fix that. And so what I'd like you to do during this little break, council and mayor, is to write down, look at these questions and write down about how you might respond or clarify what you heard Jenny say. What did you hear her say? What was important? And then so that she knows that you understand. And then you can start relating about, so what does that look like for you on your end as a person, not as a council, but as a person, as a colleague? How does it affect you? And better even is, if you all can come to some ideas about how do you honor Jenny's commitment and feel okay about it? Because the rest of you work for the community, Jenny, you're right. And you work with your council.
Right.
And you can't do anything by yourself. You gotta have the rest of the people with you. So
Right.
how do you get there? So we're gonna stop recording for a minute and we'll get back together at 3:20. Is that all right? And
That's great.
so go off and take a break, get something to drink or whatever. And then I would like each of the council members to try to make some comments about what you heard and what you would like Jenny to hear. Okay. And I will help you with those conversations. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Marilyn. Okay,
Yeah.
see you all back at 3:20. I think so.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Gig Harbor City Council retreat of September 22nd, 2022. We returned from break. It's 3:21 p.m. and I'll turn it back over to Marilyn to continue where we left off.
Okay. So I had a thought when I was on the break, and before you panic too much, we're not going to resolve this conflict today in public. What I heard you say was we'd rather do that with each other. And so, but what we are going to do is talk a little bit about practice paraphrasing and things like that. And then we're going to use those to talk about the rules. And so I do, and if that's okay with you, what I heard most of you say was, I think we should do this. If we have individual conflicts with somebody, we should do this with them. Is that all right?
Is that good with everybody? Councilman Rodenberg?
I don't necessarily agree. I think that this has become a public issue. And I think the public wants us to show them how we're going to resolve it in public. So, it happens, it reflects on transparency. If we've all heard from many members of the community about this issue, now we're going to solve it or not solve it behind closed doors, just adds to the lack of transparency. But I certainly go along with the majority of people, whatever they think.
So transparency is important to you, and being transparent is, and there's a difference between airing your dirty laundry and having a constructive conversation in public with each other. But I will see where the rest of you would like to go with this. Because what I was going to do was to ask one of you, and I'm just going to randomly call on Brenda, because I'm going to call on the blue part of her. You've got food in your mouth.
I'll swallow, sorry.
So just in the interest of paraphrasing, and we'll get back to the, what we're talking about, Lee. I appreciate that you want to get to the heart of this.
Did you notice that Lee shoved food in his mouth as soon as you called out Brenda?
Well, I thought I'd bring the blue people. I thought, bring out the different colors. So,
Sure.
So what did you hear? What did you hear Jenny say?
That she's very passionate about what she does. This feels strange talking in the third person about you, Jenny, so I'd rather
No, you can talk to her.
personalize
That's
it.
okay.
Thank you. Jenny, I hear you say that you're very passionate, you're very well intended, and you feel like you're looking out for the voters, and you do feel attacked. I think that took a lot of bravery to speak up and be vulnerable. That's a hard thing to do. That's what I took from it. We may disagree on how we communicate. We may disagree on some of the information, but we're people, and we're imperfect, and we do, like you said, have different styles. And maybe we need to all kind of take a deep breath and appreciate that about each other. I was actually quite moved by what you said. So, and I thank you for your bravery.
So now at this point, Brenda, you would say, so Jenny, did I hear you right? Did she hear you right?
Did I hear you?
Yes, I think you did, Brenda. Thank you. Very kind of you to say that.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
So that's just one, and that was good. You acknowledged what you heard, and you have that's important for people, for them to continue to hear you, is that you can heard. So I'm going to bring one of your compadres, Jenny, into this, to Roger, because he's also green. And I'm going to ask him to say, so what did you hear Jenny say?
Good thing I wrote it all down. What I heard Jenny say was she's trying to right an older wrong as past council admin actions. I heard that she has great passion about putting the residents of Gig Harbor first. I did hear and agree with Brenda that she feels like she's being attacked. Heard that she reacts by withdrawing. A lot of us do. And one thing I did hear is, and I may be wrong on this, but I think she feels like her voter mandate is not being respected by the council.
Oh, what do you think about that, Jenny?
Hi, Roger. Thank you very much. That's exactly how I feel. And I don't know that it needs to be respected by the council, my voter mandate, but my voter mandate means everything in the world to me.
Okay.
For hearing
So,
that.
so we're going to talk a little bit more about that, the voter mandate, and how, say a little bit more about the voter mandate. But what is that? How is your mandate different than the rest of the councils? Or is it?
So when I came on in 2017, transparency at the city was not in good shape. and our citizens were not being told a lot of things, and the voice of the citizen was not being heard. And so, when our citizens asked me to run, I actually have my campaign cards here in front of me to give me some comfort during this. What I put on my campaign brochures is not a lie. It's a promise that I made to our citizens. And looking at the last one about promoting full transparency and supporting the public's voice and always keeping our citizens involved and letting them know what goes on. Those are not just empty promises that I made our citizens. And so for me, when they looked at what I've done in 4 years, and they have approved of what I've done in 4 years by a large majority, and so bringing me back, knowing and believing me and trusting me, because they write me. I get emails from citizens saying, tell me about this, tell me about this. And if I can't tell them, and if I don't have the answers, then I send those emails forward on into the city. But these are people that I have a relationship, that trust me, that approve of what I have done, that approve of my keeping my promises to them. And that means something to our citizens. And that means everything to me, because I don't just say things.
Okay, so that's what you believe your obligation is. And maybe we can hear from some of the other council members about how that plays out for people. When you say that, how do they react? Because everybody has their own way of reaching out to the public, right? And what I heard you say was there was a transparency problem, but it's better, right?
It's much better, yes.
Good. And good, thank you for acknowledging that. So so what happens? So now I'm gonna go for Brown. Okay, Lee, now's your time. All right. Be not as brown as you could be, but when we said about Brown being very blunt. But when you hear Jenny say what she said, how does that hit you? What does that mean to you? What do you think she's saying to you?
Well, I realize and appreciate that all people have different levels of feelings and how they look at whether they're attacked or not. But I think acknowledging someone's negative behavior, in my opinion, is not an attack if it's done respectfully. I think you have to me, attack is, you don't want to see me attack. And I don't think anybody on this council would want any one of us to do that. So when I heard her talk, I certainly appreciate her passion. And I feel that the majority of everything she does for our citizens is very positive. However, I heard that she said she listens to the community. But on several occasions, I feel just the opposite is true. She isn't listening, but she's telling. And telling citizens what she believes, her own personal feelings and agenda, some of which is just not true. The facts are not right. So when she's telling them what she thinks based upon facts that are untrue, she solicits the citizens to believe the way she does or to think what she does. She said in this very meeting that what she does is illegal. But I ask, is it moral? Is it ethical? Does it comply with our oath of office? So I just hope we don't have to find out if it's legal or not through a lawsuit, which, I don't know, could be possible. But Anne was saying that I appreciate Jenny. I appreciate all the good she does. I would like to see her curb her pushing her agenda on citizens. When I get 90 emails, all with the same subject, typed exactly the same way, I know that it's MailChimp. Unfortunately, for the rest of the community that is contacting us, those 90 emails, it's hard to pay attention to them or take them for someone's true feelings, because I know they were solicited based on false information. So that's the way I feel.
Okay, so a couple things here. One, you're concerned about the factual, whether her emails relate to the facts, but you also are saying that when you get that level of response, how does that, how does that come across to you as a person? I mean, do you feel like you're not, you don't know how to even fix that, because you can't respond. You're not going to respond to all those emails, right? You're supposed to respond. Don't you have to respond to every?
No, we
email?
don't. But the issue is staff has to respond.
Okay.
Yeah, myself or staff
Hours.
have to respond to each email that comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
staff spends a lot of time responding to that.
Okay. So what you're saying is that Jenny, by sending these email to her people, that are your people too, by the way. They're all your people, whether you like them or
didn't
not.
say they were not.
I
No.
know they're everybody's people. And but that sets up a tension about that do you feel like she's attacking the council sometimes?
What if we all did that? What if we, instead of getting 90, what if we got 270? It'd not be good. I mean, I just don't think it's the way to get the community's opinion. And I'll say it again, and I'm trying to be respectful here and appreciate her passion and her reasoning behind what she's trying to do. But I don't take those 90 emails serious, to tell you the truth, because maybe 20 of them would have written on their own. But when you solicit them to support your thinking, like I say, you're not asking them what they think. You're telling them what you think, and you're soliciting their support for what you think. So that bothers me.
Why does it bother you?
I don't think the council gets a true picture of how the community feels. I think it's very slanted, and it's slanted because it was based upon, in some cases, false information.
So I hear you say that you get those emails, but you discount them, and so they're not even having the impact that you may, I don't know what Jenny wants them to have, but but you kind of disregard them. But it's,
And I'm not the only one on, I don't know if any other council members will speak.
you will let them speak for
I've heard
themselves, for
privately,
sure.
they don't, I've heard privately, they don't take them credible either.
Okay, well, we'll let them speak for themselves. And so I also want to hear from people about, if that's not the way to do it, how do you prefer to get public, how do you think you should solicit public input, and how should you get it? And
I love the community's input. I really do, but I don't think it should be solicited. I don't think they should be told, I believe the lighthouse should be purple. Please write a letter to council and the mayor saying the lighthouse should be purple.
Okay.
I just don't.
Okay, Jenny, then we'll get to Seth, right? Jenny, now you tell me what you heard him say, and in your best paraphrasing, do your best to try to say, here's what I heard you say, whether you agree with it or not, okay? I know that's hard. You can do it.
So what I heard him say was that he does not want to get emails from our citizens if he thinks they did not initiate them on their own.
Okay, and why is that important to him? Why did you hear that?
because he thinks the information the citizens given were incorrect.
Okay, so there's, and I'm sure you have your own response. So, remember that triangle of satisfaction and what needs to be. And if, if the substance is important, but if the process is not working for somebody, or somebody feels that they're, being attacked or whatever, that's, the substance almost doesn't matter. I mean, you're just not, and probably you've already made a decision. So remember that triangle, remember that it's the process that is some people, I think you're calling a little bit of foul on some of the process and how it's done. So can we move to Seth? Is that, I don't want to
Can
cut
I
you off.
just say that I
Oh, yeah.
would have never chosen the words attack if you not asked me that, that's how I felt.
Okay. All right. What would you?
And I
what would-
appreciate Jenny heard me correctly. I appreciate that she did, and that she even stated so. So thank you, Jenny.
Okay. And if there's a better word, or I'm using a word, I'm just trying to reflect back what I'm hearing, but if there's a better word, please correct me. I'm good with that. Seth, can we go to Seth?
Yeah, thank you. And this is such a real conversation. So Marilyn, thank you for leading us through this and prompting us. Lee and Jenny, I know you guys just kind of got out of it, and it's very respectful and very well done. So I know it's difficult to hear, in my own perspective on when these things have come up. And I think back of like our fireworks vote, I'm of course living with it, but it was a very close one, but a similar practice was used. And I made comments in the public meeting, and Brenda, thank you for calling that out. Actually, during our break, I was chatting with my wife of, I should have called Jenny, and I didn't. And that's a mistake on myself. And instead, I wasn't, I of course didn't mention any names in that meeting because we're not supposed to. But it was, I feel like even though I would have talked to you, I still would have brought it up publicly because I think it needed to be known. And what happened after the meeting, what was more surprising to me is the calls that I got from media outlets wanting to know about that issue rather than the issue we were voting on. And
that issue being, are you with us, Seth?
We lost your audio, Seth.
Darn.
hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, I hate to have to repeat that.
Just the
all
part,
of a sudden,
only the part about what the media was calling you about. What were they calling you about?
they were calling me about more of the comments regarding one of the council members and their tactics. Again, I used these words earlier, but targeted, fear-based, and biased.
Okay.
And so that became what would have become the headline for them, covering this story that, a lot of different cities are going through. And I was just like, oh no, rookie mistake as a council member. And so, of course, I responded to those and, respectfully declined. We'll deal with this in-house. And so, lesson learned for me on that. But that to me became the bigger issue than what we were actually dealing with. And so anyways, so my apologies for my side on that. Definitely have learned something through the session today, and something that just seems so obvious. Of course, you call out and should be able to talk to someone when you have a disagreement. And I expect anybody to do the same with me. I would expect that. And it's like, well, why didn't I do it myself? So yeah, so
Andy's out.
Lost you again, Seth.
Okay, we'll come back to you. It's okay. I'm not gonna call Mary because I just feel so bad for her that she doesn't feel good. But I don't want to ignore her either. But Robin, do you have anything to add to this about what you were hearing everybody say? Robin? Uh-oh. Oh, there she
Sorry.
is. Yay. Okay.
Between my directions and I'm like, where is that Zoom? No, I appreciate that everybody's hearing each other. I think one of the things, I'll just go a little further from what Lee was getting at, and not to speak for Lee, so correct me if I'm wrong here, Lee, but I think a concern is that as council members, we want to make sure that we are really getting a sense of what the community wants. And, we want to get the real pulse of the community. And if, one or two or three of us are really trying to collect a bunch of public input on one side of an issue, we might have a skewed view of what the community feels like. I think, we've got another issue right now where there's an organized group. We've had many of these issues where there's an organized group of people that are everybody to
Robin, your audio is really bad.
But it was just the last sentence or two that
Yeah.
it starts really good and then you want to hear the end and it kind of, you kind of lose you. It's very unfortunate because the best stuff is at the end. So I don't know if you want to try to repeat just the last couple sentences of what you were saying.
Maybe she can't hear us either.
Maybe, okay, all right, okay.
We can come back. Oh, she
We'll
just
come back
dropped
there.
off. So maybe we'll,
Okay.
yeah, when she comes back on.
Okay, and Mary, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have to be brief, obviously,
Yes.
but I really appreciate what everybody has been saying. And the one thing that I wanted to add is and I'm going to be like Brenda, I have to speak to Jenny. I don't want to talk in one of the things I admire about. But Jenny, one of the things that I really admire about you is your passion for the community and your love for the community and the people who elected you. And I think one of the things that is absolutely fabulous about you, but we're all passionate about the community too. And I think that sometimes it can, at least in my mind, this is my blue side coming out probably way more than normal, but and that may have been the limit of my talking. But I think sometimes your passion is so much more important than any of the rest of our passion, that I wish there was a way that we could understand that we all have that passion.
Well said. Jenny, what'd you hear?
I heard a lot of blowing nose and coughing. And I hope you're feeling better soon, Mary. So I appreciate that Mary heard of my passion for this community, and I heard her say that sometimes I think that she thinks I don't feel that the rest of the council has the same passion.
And is that true or not?
No, it's not.
It's not. So you believe they all have passion, but the way you just what the process of what you're doing maybe comes across to them as that they're not as passionate, but they are.
No, I don't think that they're not as passionate. I don't judge them.
Yeah. Okay.
So I
Right.
just think that we come to this place from a different path, and everybody has their own passion, and I don't judge them. I have huge respect for anyone who chooses to run for city council. Maybe Mary will run next year, and for anyone who's appointed to city council or sits on city council. Have huge respect for every single person here, and I don't judge them. I think that however they choose to be a council member for the constituents is just fine with me. And if their constituents don't like it, they'll let them know about it. They'll let us all know
Okay.
they're unhappy with us.
Okay.
Brenda has her hand raised.
Do you want
Brenda,
me to speak or?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just wanted to echo, Jenny, kind of what Robin said, in that sometimes I was one of the people that responded to every one of these letters, and I like the interactions with this. Anybody that writes us, they take the time. Sometimes it takes me a week to get back, and I try to personalize what is somewhat of a form letter myself, but just to acknowledge that people took the time to write. I know that I am concerned about how that takes staff time, but I also am concerned that we're hearing a vocal minority as opposed to possibly a silent majority. And I want to make sure that I'm listening to everybody, because we don't have districts. We all represent every voter in the city. And I get concerned that maybe my biases are getting skewed because of what I'm seeing, because people who write are either usually really happy or really unhappy. And so it gives you the pulse points of things that might be brewing, but not necessarily. It's the same thing in healthcare. People that get back to you are usually either really happy or really unhappy. And the rest of everybody is living their lives. So I just want to make sure we're attending to the right things. But I also sometimes I feel like, we're each, what's 1 divided by 7, what, 14 point something percent, 14.3% probably. We're each 14.3% of a whole. And when we work together, when we reach out to say, what do you think about this? Or how can we work together on this? I think it gets us a lot further. I think coming together and finding things we can work on together is key. And I look forward to finding common ground of things that we can work on together, like the senior center, as opposed to what I feel like sometimes is putting up walls. Because I think when we put up walls, your good ideas, Jenny, might not be heard by other people because they're frustrated by the walls and not necessarily that it's a bad idea, if that makes sense. I'm worried that if people are frustrated, they're not going to listen to any ideas and that your voice would get lost. And that's what makes me sad, because I do think you have passion.
Okay, so you're all equally passionate, and I do see and sense that you all care about each other as people, and you all respect one another. I mean, what you do, that you are. Nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings. Even though there's only some of you that are blue, you all are all concerned and thinking about how you're interacting with your colleagues, and you want that to be good. You want that to be good for you, yourself, and for everybody else on the council. And so I'm thinking that maybe if we can, maybe you could talk about this forever, but I think we've heard some interesting things here. And I'm wondering if it would be okay if we go back to the rules and just sort of walk through them. And what may happen is that there are certain rules that are, sort of speak to how you communicate with the public and how you communicate with each other. And so, so let's get back to the substance, because then staff can walk away with something and that you can come back and talk about. And then you would do what you talked about doing, I think, and that is you would continue the conversation individually with each other and to get to some resolution. And, sometimes having a third, neutral party there is good. But hopefully you can just get that done. Is that all right? Can we move to the rules?
I think that's great.
Okay, in that case then, so I did have my, let's see, I can share my screen again. Oh dear. Okay, I'm back. You all have the rules in front of you, right? So I was thinking that it might be worthwhile just to kind of march through them a little bit and, sort of say, so the first 2 paragraphs are about speak to the purpose, the intent of why you have these rules. There you go. Thank you. And it says that the purpose of this document is to state shared values and workflows that emulate to the Gig Harbor community that the council is dedicated to service with civility, accountability, public confidence, and respect. City Council understands that in order for the city to run efficiently and transparently, There must be a set of rules and procedures that are regularly followed. The city council, by adoption of this document, seeks to inspire public confidence in the city government. So this document is not only for you, but it's for your community. And it's your blueprint for what you think you are modeling as civility. So Jenny, you had wanted to replace the first two paragraphs, but it was the second paragraph that you were particularly concerned about. Was there anything in that first paragraph that you took issue with?
No, I think it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so that's fine. All right. And what in particular in the second paragraph were
So I
you,
would like to see something in there, maybe after the sentence that says after goals, which is on the fourth line,
uh-huh,
the
okay.
council is composed of individuals with a wide varieties of backgrounds, personalities, values, opinions, and goals.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to see a sentence in there about every council person respects the right of every council person to be a council person in their own way.
Okay. So
And
okay,
that
so
probably needs to be very.
yeah,
worded
but I'm
in a
trying to
big
think
way.
about what you're saying there, because what you're saying is I am what I am and I like what I am. Some of
I
your
want to say that we respect each other's ability to be the council person they are.
okay. And okay, so and then one of the other things is, and then you'll have to get to this later, and that is, what is it about what you're doing that some people find difficult, where you're not maybe seeming to respect what they're doing, how does that work out? But so it's really that last, what about that last sentence? Were you okay about that?
Yeah, I'm fine with the last sentence.
Okay, and so you do agree that there's productive behaviors and there's not productive behaviors. Okay, so I don't know what the wordsmithing answer to this is, and I would ask if anybody has any ideas about what that might look like or sound like. But I think it's almost respect for the individual.
Yes, I think so.
We respect each other
for each elected council person.
as an individual, but also the group that you are a body. You're a
Right,
council,
right,
right? You're
right.
7 council members, but you are a council, right?
Right.
Okay, so something, and I don't know, Katrina, maybe I don't know how to think about it later about how to get that in there. Oh, she's typing, I think. So
Councilmember Barber.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do this, and if not, I may have to ask Katrina to help me. I had done some thinking on this last night.
Okay.
And have a proposed new version of those 2 paragraphs that I had sent to Katrina. I don't know, and listening to Jenny just then, I wanted to add a phrase that I think addresses what Jenny was talking about. So we'll see if I can get through this. But what I was thinking was the Gig Harbor City Council is dedicated to serving the residents and working with city staff with civility, accountability, and respect. As such, and I'm not going to make it, we understand there must be a set of regularly followed rules and procedures. We acknowledge that some behavior is counterproductive to our success. We recognize and respect a diverse set of backgrounds, beliefs, and opinions are important to our city. And Katrina or somebody, can you finish reading, please?
thank you.
Katrina,
Katrina?
could you zoom
Also-
in some?
Oh,
Yeah, I was trying to zoom in too.
So is this what Mary had sent to you?
yes, this is
Okay.
what Mary said.
Okay, all right. Oh, there we go, that's better. Okay, so
I
the
think where
gig
she left
harbor,
off is here, important to our city. We also recognize that because council members have chosen to lead the city, those members must adhere to a higher standard of conduct. By adopting this document, council members commit to the tenets of behavior and ethics critical to our success as city leaders.
Okay,
So I would still like to see something in there acknowledging that we are all individual council members with our own method of being council members, and we respect each other's differences on that.
so something like we respect each other's differences, but and we work as a team.
Yeah, sure. We respect each
something
other's
like that.
differences and our rights to be individual council people.
Okay, so that's where I think when you talk about rights to be individual council people, I think I'm hearing you. So, okay, so let me ask you this. Let's say I'll just pick on somebody here, somebody other than you, Jenny. Let's say Robin did something that she behaved in a way that you didn't think was right, and wasn't respectful to you or whatever. But that's the way she wanted to do it. And so how do you balance that? Is being respectful of individuals and how people like to do things individually with making sure that you're all okay with it, that nobody's getting harmed, or concerned in the process.
I didn't follow all of that, Marianne.
I can't imagine why, because it was really pretty random. But what I'm saying is there has to be that balance. And I'm not sure, I think you're going to need to work on that a little bit more. Because there has to be a balance between individuality and collegiality. You know what I mean?
Well, there better be a way for both of those to be together.
Yes, and I think you are. Everybody is who they are. That's true. So, but I think I get at what the heart is of what is needing to be changed. But let's not try to do it right here, right now, but just acknowledge that what I hear from you, Jenny, is that you want something in there acknowledging that you all have different styles. You all have different ways of doing things. Okay, so now if we go into the next section.
You want to go down?
Yeah, so that was the second sentence. And so down to the public service. Is that where we're at?
Yeah. Can you guys
Okay.
see that okay?
It's
It's
a
really
little
small.
Okay.
We all can individually zoom in, but I don't know if everyone knows how to do that. So if you could
that's
zoom in
better.
for us, that would be
That's
great,
better.
Katrina.
Thank you. Okay. So public service agreements, and Roger thanks you for that title. He likes that. He likes what that says. So disagreement and difference of opinion is an honored and respected feature of government in Gig Harbor. We can agree to disagree. Okay. Council members will acknowledge and respect other members' perspectives in areas of disagreement with another council member. Every attempt will be made to have a private conversation outside of a council meeting first. So if you're going to have a disagreement, you're going to talk to each other individually. But when you're in a meeting, I think that says that you will be respectful in a meeting and respect other people's perspectives. And, so is that what that says to you?
Yeah.
Because I think, one of the things, the way that you do that is, again, the way that I talk about this breeding is that if you disagree with somebody, say, so this is what I hear you say, check, make sure that you understand what they're saying and why they're saying it. Did I get that right? Okay, then if you have a different perspective, bring that in, but make sure that you hear and understand each other well before you disagree. And if you can't, and rather than escalate it at a meeting, I think this says take it out, take it outside. Does anybody have a problem with that? Here we go. Got some, one hand up.
Councilmember Henderson.
It isn't a problem. I mean, it's clear if there's disagreements on non-factual things like protocol procedure that you need to talk about outside of a meeting. But if we're in a meeting and there are disagreement, I mean, that first sentence says it itself, that disagreement and difference of opinions is an honored and respected feature of government, whether in Gig Harbor or anywhere else, at least in the what's left of it in the US. So the next sentence that says we'll acknowledge and respect the other members' perspectives makes sense. And then meeting when you can outside, but we're going to have meetings when something is brought up and there are going to be disagreements right then and there. I mean, so I just want to make sure that the intent is, well, we don't say anything about it and then we have to have a meeting later on because the disagreement is on a factual subject.
Right.
So.
That's called debate. And you have debate, and that's an accepted part of governance is you each provide your own perspective, but you do so respectfully and you listen to each other. And so I think that's civil discourse is, really what that's about.
Maybe we could put that first word, disagreement indifference. Why don't we call that debate indifference or something like that? Because we have the words used twice, but one's supposedly debate and the other is, I don't agree with you, but we have to meet afterwards.
Or you could just, take that first word out and say difference of opinion
That's all right.
is an honored and respected feature of government. And it's partly part of the democratic process.
It is.
Does anybody have any concern with that?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
Oh,
Go.
maybe one. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Okay.
Are we talking about item number 9 yet?
No.
We're still on the first one.
Okay, I'm just sorry for the way my mind works.
Okay. You really wanted to skip to the end?
No, that's not it.
I know it's hard sort of marching through it sometimes. It takes some time. Stay with us though. We'll try to move through it more quickly. Number 2, council members will take special care to listen and hear other member perspectives. Communication will be done respectfully, kindly, and directly. Council members will refrain rather than regrain from intimidating behaviors. Is there any concern with that? I mean, does that sound, I mean, that sounds good. I mean, you wouldn't want, that's not something you want to show in public at all. I mean, you don't want people to feel, you don't want your community to feel like mom and dad are fighting again. It's not a good look for you. Okay, so public input is paramount to crafting city policy. Council members will actively listen and seek to understand citizen feedback. I think that's, you all agree with that. And I think that you probably have some room to do some public outreach, citizen involvement work if you want to, and be organized about that. And, so you agree about how you're going to get that input and who's going to do it. So you have staff that can do that, right, Katrina?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So this is important. Council members will base their decisions on facts, but reconsider decisions of changing circumstances warrant reconsideration. That was I pinned that one on you, Roger, because you brought that up. It's like, but if the facts change, then we might need to reconsider, right? Does everybody like that?
I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads.
Okay, good. And fact checking is interesting. It's kind of like there's concern sometimes that things aren't factual, and I don't know what you do or who does the fact checking, but that's something that you also need to figure out. Council members will not seek out the media to vent feelings when on the losing end of a vote. So, even though the media would really love you to talk about your disagreements in a way that is interesting to them, I think you do you have policies about how the media is contacted and by whom?
We have internal policies for staff, yes.
Okay, and for council?
Don't believe so. Josh, are you?
I think that's what this is for, is we don't have any existing policies for that for council members.
Okay, and so one of the things is that you're kind of agreeing to not contact the media yourself with your own individual opinions, that's kind of a big thing. What do you think about that?
Councilmember Henderson?
Yeah, I'm not sure we want to just tie this just to the losing end of a vote. I think Marilyn just noted it, that they don't want us to, we shouldn't be out soliciting media input just for our own sake. So whether you lose a vote or win a vote, I'm not sure whether we should crow about either one to the media.
Councilmember Barber?
I would agree with that. And I would also say that we do need something of a media policy for council so that we understand when we should and should not be talking to the media. And I would like to ask that we do that when we do the social media policy.
That makes sense.
As a communications professional, it's really important to me.
Yeah, that's a good set of agreements to have about who is the spokesperson for the city and when. When is it staff? When is it council? When is it the mayor? So that would be a good thing to add in there. So you got that, Katrina?
Yes.
Okay. Council members will not criticize those who voted against their position on issues. So it's kind of, you can well, how to say, agreeably disagree. So what does that mean to you folks? What do you think about, what does that sentence say to you? Is it really totally clear what that means? It is? Okay, what's the difference between that and debate?
Councilmember Henderson?
Well, debate would be, well, we don't want to, I mean, in public, we shouldn't be debating how other people voted. That was the vote of the council, and our vote is what counts as a group. So yeah, we don't want to criticize. Debate, we can debate, I don't know, the merits of the issue, but I think once it's been voted on, it's a slippery slope to start talking about it after that, because then there's that really thin line between debating on something that's been decided on and sounding like you're criticizing it because you may not have been on that side. So I prefer just to leave it like this, or we don't debate issues once they've been, once we, the council, has decided on it via voting, it's a done deal, and we have our personal feelings on it, but those can always be vented to spouse, family, whatever. But I don't think should be in a public thing or to the media.
Okay.
Councilmember Rodenberg?
Yeah, debate is what happens before the vote. After the vote, it's a done deal. So someone asks, what's the difference? No debate after. We just, all of us, regardless of how the vote turned out, need to support the decision of the council.
That's clear.
Councilmember Likens?
Yes, I was just agreeing with both Lee and Roger, but I would add the words on that sentence. Maybe start it with once a vote has been taken, comma, then council members will not, because prior to that, like you said, that's debate. That's having, civil discourse. But once the vote is taken, that's when we stop. So, thanks.
Councilmember Wook?
Yes, thank you. It's my understanding that if somebody asks us about something, we can certainly say the council voted on this in this way, but I did not vote that way because of this way. And that's perfectly allowed to say.
Okay, without calling out any other individual council
Oh,
members,
right.
right?
No, no,
Yeah.
no. It would be, this was the vote of the council, but I voted differently because of this.
Yeah. And there's all those, impassioned speeches that you give just before the vote, where you explain why you're voting for or against something. Every council does that that I've seen. And that's your opportunity to explain, why you voted the way you did. And I just stick with whatever you said there. So is that okay to leave that the way it is once the vote is taken? Council members will not criticize those who voted against their positions on issues. And then once the council has adopted policy or an issue is passed or defeated by a majority vote, remaining council members will not work against that decision. So is there a way to say that, to turn that around to say remaining council members will honor the decision rather than say won't work against it, or is that not strong enough?
Councilmember Look.
Yeah, I have a question on this one because several years ago, we had a majority of council that voted for a particular union issue. And when those council members left the council and new council members came on, that issue was revisited and the stance and the vote was reversed.
Right, so another council can make a different
So
decision.
this does not limit that happening.
No,
Okay,
no, I don't think that's what I think they're talking about for the sitting council would be it. Okay,
okay, that's fine.
all right. Yes, councils are allowed to change their mind. You just have to think carefully about what that means.
Councilmember Barber.
I'm wondering if number 7 and number 9 could kind of be combined together into one, and removing the last sentence in number 9. Because again, if something has been passed, we really should not be advocating for the opposite side. So I wonder if we could combine those two somehow.
Okay, is there a difference between advocating for the other side after a vote and sharing your opinion about if you happen to vote no for it, why you voted no? Is there a difference there?
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, I think a couple of these are redundant, and I think doing what Mary said is important. But I do agree that last sentence has been said everywhere else. We don't want someone, once we voted, I don't want to hear about a council person running around town talking about that was bad vote, should have never been that way. I would have never voted that way. The sky's going to fall.
Councilmember Look.
So I do want to make sure that if someone comes up and asks about a particular vote, that we can say council voted this way, I did not vote that way, and this is my reason for not voting. It should something happen along those lines. I mean, I think to restrict that, it gets into the First Amendment.
But do you maybe end the comment with, and I respect the decision of the council?
Oh, yeah, I think that should be made clearly.
I think that's a
all
good
throughout
thing
the
to add there.
conversation. Yeah. And I was totally supportive of that. And it does need to make clear that the full council, that the majority of council voted such and such a way. Totally.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, I think it's all in the way that you say that. And as far as the First Amendment goes, quite a bit of this is opposed to the First Amendment, but we're agreeing to it. I'm not going to press that issue, but I do think it's all in the way you say it. It should not be derogatory. What Jenny said is perfectly right. The council voted this way. I did not agree. This is why I voted. But they shouldn't say the council misunderstood the facts. The council did this, the council did that. this particular council person. And it's all in the way you say it. So saying that you disagree is fine, but let's leave it upon ourselves to be the best people we can be and not be derogatory about the reasons.
Everybody agree with that? Is that a good thought? Sounds good to me. So did you get that last? So what do you think about, did you delete the last one or what happened there?
I moved 9 into 7 and deleted the last sentence that.
Ah,
discussed-
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And now I'm thinking that 8 is also redundant.
I think it's important to have that last sentence there of 9. That we do have the right to say. We just talked about that. It's how we say it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
If asked, council members may give their individual views on the issue. Yes, I think it's important that we do keep that.
And it's how it's done.
Right.
It's how you deliver the message without directly criticizing somebody else or calling somebody else out.
I think
That's
the if
important.
asked is really important too.
Oh,
That's at
okay.
the beginning of that. It's only if you're asked. You don't go out and say, this is my view, even though nobody agreed with me.
Okay.
I agree with that. In fact, we ought to put if asked bold.
Oh, no, there's a very Brown thing right there. How do you really feel, Lee?
Councilmember Wook.
Yeah, I don't agree with the if ask. I think if you're having a conversation with somebody and you tell them how the council voted on this and that's why it voted on it, and you voted a different way. I don't think somebody should have to say to you, well, how did you vote? I don't think that should be there. I think it's the way that you say it again, this is First Amendment. And so I'm not supportive of that. I'm not supportive of leaving that in. I think it should, council members should be allowed to say their views on anything. And yeah.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
I absolutely think the words if asked, because if I don't know how often it's going to happen that these kind of things come up, but council people shouldn't be going around unsolicited, giving their opinions about a vote they didn't go their way. So I think if asked is absolutely necessary to be there.
Okay, so we have differing perspectives, 2 different perspectives here. And again, this at the end of the day, this set of rules is something that you're going to have to agree to and you're going to adopt formally. And so words matter. And it would be better at best if on something like this, of this nature, that you are all 100% on board with it and that you listen to each other about why. So there's 2 different perspectives. Lee just gave his perspective. Jenny gave her perspective. They are different perspectives and not one of them is not right and one of them is not wrong.
I'd like to hear from other council people, how they feel.
I think it's really important that once a vote is taken, that we do not go out and offer an alternative opinion before a conversation has happened. So I'm in favor of having the if asked or some phrase like that there.
Councilmember Likens.
Yeah, I'm looking through the examples that we got of other cities, and on all of those examples, almost everyone prefaces the not speaking, not giving their personal opinion. They all say if asked or unless asked, or will state the formal decision of the council and will only give their personal opinion if asked. I think that's kind of at the heart of it. I hear, Jenny, what you're saying about wanting, people to know, but as Ann pointed out, in those impassioned speeches that we give before the vote, that's the time for us to give our views on that. So I think IFAS should stay in.
Councilmember, let's see, we haven't heard from Roger on this yet. Councilmember Henderson?
Yeah, I'm pretty much neutral on it because if asked, who the heck's gonna enforce it? If somebody hears, I mean, if somebody hears that Roger said, here was my opinion, and they're gonna say, well, did you ask? I'll say, well, you betcha. So, I mean, it's a silly thing. I think what people are trying to get at, the two sides are, Jenny's point of view is, I want to have the freedom to let people know how I voted. What I'm hearing on the other side is, and they're different things, unfortunately, but they get commingled, is I don't want you bad mouthing the vote of the city council. But they're not the same. So agreed with folks saying, yeah, when you're, after we voted, we support. But I also agree that you should have the opportunity and the right to say, I didn't agree with it, and here's my reasoning behind it. If I say they screwed up in the city council and was a crummy vote, I should be censored on that because that's breaking these rules. So if asked, yeah, I don't care what you put in there. People are going to do it anyway. So I'm sorry. I'm very neutral on it. I just hear two things being commingled that aren't 100% the same.
And I like your distinction, Roger, that helps a lot. And in terms of who's going to enforce this, I think Jiminy Cricket is always a good choice. Let your conscience be your guide.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wook?
I would like to find some other words in there if some of our wordsmithers are out there, because I don't think anybody is just going to go out the door and say, I didn't, this and this and this. But if you're having a conversation with somebody, I don't think you should have to wait until say, and how did you vote on this? If you're talking about an issue, you should be able to say what the issue was and why you voted or didn't vote against it. There may be people who didn't attend the council meetings, and perhaps we need to hear Daniel's viewpoint on this.
Well, and is council thinking about this in the perspective of individual conversations with community members or to the media? Because there's a difference in conversations between the media versus like a community member that asked how you voted on something. So what is this referring to? Both, one or the other? Maybe that's the part that needs to be specified.
I thought this was about council neighbors, community.
Wow.
Okay. Because that makes a difference if you're just talking to a community member versus going to the newspaper or the news and saying, I didn't vote on this because this and this and this and the council sucks,
Right,
so,
right.
there's a difference between talking with a neighbor and talking with someone that's going to then write a paper or an article about it in the paper. Let's see, Councilmember Rodenberg, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I think we're assuming these are all personal conversations. And maybe it'll be covered in the social media discussion, but someone could go on their 2 or 3 different social media sites and say, that was a bad vote. It should have never turned out that way. My opinion is this. So it's not necessarily just personal conversations, but talking about when it's going to be enforced, we will know, and it'll be reported to us, I'm sure, if it shows up on social media sites.
Can we find out what Daniel has to say about this?
Daniel?
Not a whole lot. And the reason for that is, this is a policy discussion that you all are doing wonderfully with, by the way. I think this is a great conversation. Legally speaking, no, you can talk all you want. There's nothing that says you can't talk to your constituents or about any topic. So, I don't want to inject myself into your conversation. You need to get there as a group, and but legally speaking, you can leave a council meeting and add it to the big board of votes you lost, or email your people. You can do whatever you want, but you're doing a lot of things here that as a group you're saying this is how we want to do this, And so it's an important conversation to get beyond what I might have to say and to get to where you want to be.
Because First Amendment rights that's huge. I mean, that's everything. That allows you to say anything. That doesn't mean you ought to say it. And remember when I said that these sort of rules are more aspirational than sort of absolute? It's something that you aspire to, and a code of behavior that you all agree to that keeps your conversations civil and that keeps that models the kind of behavior you want the community to model to.
And I guess I would just say one more thing. And I think you all have been doing this by getting consensus as you've walked through is, and Marilyn, you said this explicitly, finding that consensus is going to be so key, because you don't want to set yourselves up to have a violation that is needless in many ways, because you're going to have more drama with yourselves and with the public if you write in that somebody can't say something after a meeting and then they go say something after the meeting. Okay, so you just boxed everybody into a corner to now have to deal with that, when in fact they have that right. And so finding that middle ground where everybody can meet on conduct, particularly on something like this, is going to be really important, because otherwise everybody's running straight for a brick wall.
Ouch.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, I appreciate Daniel's comments about what is legal and what is not legal. But we're talking about what's moral and ethical, and legality is one thing, but morals and being ethical is another. In society, there are certain things we can't just go out and yell fire in a theater. However, we could go in a park and yell it. So I'm just saying that what we agree to here, although is not necessarily illegal, is a code of conduct, not a legal statute.
It's self-imposed.
Yes. Thank you.
And something that we aspire to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Likens.
Yeah, I was just looking at number 7, and it talks about once a council is adopted, passed, defeated, the remaining council members will honor the decision. So I almost feel like just saying, if we honor the decision, if we each think about what honoring that means. Now, honoring may be respectfully disagreeing, but still respecting the vote of the council. Maybe that already says what we're trying to say here. I don't know if we need number 8, but I'm fine with it being there. But maybe just using the words honor, or because do we have to support it 100%? That might be hard. But I'd be curious, like Lisa, to hear from other council people and see what they think.
Councilmember Denson.
Yes, I like what Councilmember Likens just said, and what Lee said too, that we should listen to our own ethics on this. I think it's okay. We win some, we lose some. I think it's okay if we are asked, or if we're having a conversation with a neighbor. I think it's all right to say, the council decided this was the majority. I voted a different way, but this was one that the council, majority went the other direction. So as long as we're being respectful and we're not bad mouthing the council, and we're not, I don't know that it's appropriate to re-argue the case that's already been argued, or try and throw anybody under the bus. I don't know that we need to have the language in there about being asked, because I feel like if it's an issue I feel that I lost on, for example, I would probably want my neighbor, I would probably want to say, this was something that, I saw the other side on. I disagreed, but, I'm honoring this decision. This was the decision of the council, and we're moving forward in that direction, and I respect that.
Okay, so what I heard was a suggestion that maybe you don't need number 8 because it's really included in number 7.
How many would agree with that? Thumbs up, or I don't,
Well, I mean,
there's
it
a few
seems like
without
it-
cameras on, so majority think I agree with that I'm seeing.
Okay. Well,
It-
what you, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm just thinking we either need 7 or 8, but maybe not both, so whichever. 7 is more, a little bit more explanatory. Number 6,
Okay.
number 6 covers the whole thing. If asked, or however you want to make it, if you discuss the fact that you voted differently, you're going to refer yourself to number 6, which means you don't criticize those who voted, or maybe we should say criticize those or the council as a whole who voted against it. I mean, it's okay to explain why you voted how you did. I think everybody should do that. But again, what the point is that we don't want to be criticizing either each other personally or the other part of the council that voted the way you didn't.
So good talk. I think that at this point, this isn't your last touch on this document.
Yeah.
So they're going to bring it back to you, incorporating some of these things that you were talking about. And surely when you come back to it, you'll say, you know, I think it should be, you know, an and instead of an if or something like that. And, you know, you can polish it up. You can always amend it later if it's not working for you. In the interim, I do believe that it's important for you as individual council members to be to try to work out why it is you don't like certain things or how it affects you, rather than saying you shouldn't do this, you should never do this, but rather than when you do this, this is how I feel about it. This is how I take it, and this is how it affects me. And you know, own your own stuff, and that's the kind of one-on-one conversations that you can at least try to get to the point where you understand that you have different perspectives and that you're coming from different places, and that you respect that as long as it doesn't get in the way of making decisions, and as long as it, you know, doesn't get in the way of you being effective as a council, because that's your first responsibility, right? To do things, to decide things. Okay, so Katrina, do you have enough here to be able to come back with something? And what's your plan and process for bringing this back?
That is a great question. It sounds like some of the takeaways that I've heard so far are that we need an accountability piece to this, and that we want to write something in that we'll revisit it annually to have an evaluation and a feedback loop, and media policy for council. So those are the 3 main, besides the points that council members discussed when we were just going through the.
So
previous
in terms of accountability, I have some ideas about that, about almost a value statement that says we agree to hold ourselves and each other accountable to these values and these rules, and we will individually resolve conflicts of those sorts proactively or something like that. I mean, we can talk more about it, but just, you know, to somehow say, yes, you're going, there's times when you're going to disagree, but you have to sort of make a pledge that you're good with this. And if one of you feels like another one of you isn't doing it the way, isn't honoring that particular rule, not that they're not doing it the way you would do it, but they're not doing it, they're not honoring it, they're sort of violating, then you need to have a personal conversation with that person and do really good listening, really good listening, and really good, you know, understanding. Make sure you understand what they're saying and what you're hearing, what they're saying. So okay, so we're at 4:35 here. The other 2 things that were things that were coming out of, one was the social media policy, but there was also going to be a set of like a roadmap about how council works with staff, like if they need extra information or when they should, you were going to do that too as well, right? And to
Yes,
sort
and
of,
some of that is within the document.
uh-huh,
We tried to add that in there,
okay,
and we will be working on our internal documents and sharing those and getting council's feedback as well, because we need those internally. Sorry. My phone's been very busy during this meeting. I apologize. So we'll be bringing all of that back together, and also working on an internal roadmap for who goes to where. I've had some conversations, I think with 3 or 4 of you regarding, contacting staff. And so hopefully you saw within this document that we're not trying to gatekeep. It's more for the work piece to understand, that staff are very busy. So it's not my intention or the mayor's intention to gatekeep you from staff, but definitely what we want to try to do is have me or the department heads be your primary contact. So if you have a public works general concern, for example, Councilmember Wook had brought up an ADA question near one of the parks. And so she very appropriately emailed Jeff and CC'd me so that I was aware that she was asking that question. Jeff knew that I knew that he was looking into that. And then that feedback loop so that I knew that Jeff was responding to Councilmember Wook. That was absolutely perfect. Additionally, we added in this document that if there's a council bill or a council memorandum to a work session, that council members are welcome to then bypass the director and ask questions to that staff member who wrote the council bill or the memo. And so that way, everybody kind of knows what everyone's doing, and we can keep that accountability loop together and also keep staff on task as much as possible to the work that they're diligently trying to do to accomplish for all of us.
so, and I thought you had added some language to that. I didn't bring that into this conversation, not because I didn't mean to, but did anybody have any, did it sound about right to you? Was it helpful?
I'm
Yes,
seeing heads nodding
okay, okay.
and a list from Roger.
Uh-oh, Roger, talk to us.
Yes, no, I don't know. You're on mute, Roger.
I think with Katrina's clarification, that my concerns were answered.
Great.
So basically what I'm hearing her saying by this writing is we can skip going through chains of command if there's a topic that's either come out on a studies. Is it study session or just council only?
It would be for study session or a regular meeting. If like staff, for instance, if Marcos McGraw put together a report on the Scanzi net shed, and you had a question about, the cost of that, or, how a mechanism of that, contacting the person on that would be appropriate.
Okay.
And then on the internal side, we're also going to work on the internal mechanisms so that Marcos would then tell Public Works Director Jeff Langhelm, hey, just wanted to let you know I had a conversation with Councilmember Henderson. This is the question that he asked. And that gives Jeff the awareness of, oh, well, Roger had that question. Maybe another council member has that question, and maybe we should let everyone know. So it kind of helps us keep everyone in the loop and kind of monitor. Also, if there's a larger problem brewing that we may need to address in a particular project.
It works for me.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, Katrina, you just answered my question. But I think it's important, really important, that if we do have questions on bills or things that are coming before council in a council meeting, and you have a question for staff, get that answered before the council meeting. And then we'll all, I think I just heard that we'd all get a copy of the question and the answer and the response. And it'll make the council meetings shorter, for one thing, and it'll make us all look a little bit more educated in the council meeting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. Yeah. And so some of that is also within the document. And again, we will continue to craft our internal policies surrounding that. But if it's something that, if Councilmember Henderson missed a meeting and he's contacting Marcos, that's one thing. But if there's, a few questions, then what we're going to advise staff on is to send an email to all council. Hey, this question was posed and more than one of you may have this. So you would have the time to read that prior to making a decision on that topic. And so this is actually really helpful that we're going through this on the council side, because it's going to help us go through it internally as well.
And it might not be a question that we had as a council, but now it's been pointed out. So yeah, it is important.
Yeah, so that's,
I'm glad that Seth did. So now I have an answer. Thanks.
so that's consistent with my philosophy that the staff loves council all equally and they give you all the same information. So nobody has something that somebody else doesn't have.
Yeah, Councilmember Henderson.
Yeah, and again, for city council meetings, we have shortened them considerably because we don't have as many questions. Study sessions, we can try to get as many questions and answers ahead of time, but oftentimes we get an agenda with a topic and no backup, and then somebody gives a presentation. Well, then how is any of us going to go ask a question ahead of time? So I'm going to still go on the assumption that study sessions are open for questions, respectfully, of course, but and if I can get a question answered ahead of time, absolutely. I don't want to waste everybody's time. But we often have, not often, but there's many times when we've had just topics, somebody gives an entire presentation. There's usually questions that come off of that. And often, as we all know, when you ask a question, you get an answer. It might lead to a second question, but
that's good.
Yeah, and work sessions are more, work in them, right? So it denotes kind of back and forth from council, and that's usually like the first or second touch that council will have on a certain topic. And by the time it gets to a council meeting, you've seen it before.
Yeah, and I don't want council to be afraid to ask questions in any meeting. I mean, if we welcome that, and sometimes there is an opportunity, if you think that the public would benefit from the question that you're asking, talk about that with the staff person or with Katrina and say, hey, maybe I think this question should be asked in public, but the staff person will know ahead of time that you're planning on asking that question, so they're not caught off guard. But if there's a question that you think should be answered publicly for the benefit of the public as well as council, I don't want to discourage you guys from doing that. Just being cognizant of the fact, just of how many questions, and then making sure that staff person is as prepared as possible, so they're not looking or feeling caught off guard. No surprise rule, I guess, for staff would be good. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yep, this meeting has been so good, and we've covered so many things and answered questions. It should be mandatory that any incoming council looks at the recording, because they'll answer a lot of questions in their mind, and how to go forward. I mean, it's been really good, and I appreciate the city doing it. I appreciate Marilyn being here and running it. So thank you for having this meeting.
Thank you.
For saying that, Lee.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marilyn, we're so grateful to have you. This has been very, very productive.
Okay, so you're on a good start now. You're on a good flight path, and stay at it. And if it gets any gnarlier than this, you're going to have to call Dr. Phil. I've done everything I could do for you.
No.
All right, is that it then? Look, it's 4:44. I don't want to short you on your time. I mean,
Does any council member have any other comments or questions, feedback?
Mayor, if I may, I'm not a council member, but we will be coming back with what council requested today. In addition, Josh and I have been looking for a speaker that was at the AWC conference earlier this year regarding social media, and works with bodies such as this on social media policies and kind of the do's, don'ts, and the good, bad, or the ugly on all of that, to help us think about crafting that policy. And so we'll plan to bring all of that back to you before the end of the year. I know that Councilmember Luke is going to be out of town for a while, and you all are going to be engrossed in budget for the month of October, so likely November or early December, we'll plan to bring this back.
So that sounds like a good time to be gone, Jenny, to be in the throes of budget. I'm just saying.
I'm jealous. Can I come with you?
But so what you're saying is that the final version of this and the final discussion of this and social media will come back probably after the meat of the budget. So more when Jenny's back, right? Is that what you're saying? Okay,
Yes.
So that everyone can participate.
okay.
Councilmember Likens.
Yes, so I don't know if we want to do this Monday, but I believe Councilmember Denson has a birthday on Sunday. And given the last time we sang and how great that was for Lee's birthday, maybe we could end the meeting and up our game a little bit. Although I don't know, Mary's gonna start coughing and it'll be terrible.
We could have a do-over for Lee too.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we want to say happy birthday to Robin. I'll leave it up to everybody else.
I think we should just hire somebody to sing for us. That would be.
There you go.
Well, the
Happy
Beatles,
birthday, Robin.
the Beatles
Happy
did a good
birthday.
song
Happy
about
birthday.
birthdays.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Robin.
And thank you, Marilyn.
you.
Yes, you're welcome. So are we adjourning?
I think
Mayor?
so. Thank you once again, Marilyn, for
Okay.
all of your work with us. And it may not be the last time we call you, so keep us on your
Well, that's
you know,
what I
caller
want to
ID.
hear. I want to hear that. Either that or applause, either one. So that they both work. Yeah.
All right, we'll give you a round of applause.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, as well, for being here with us as always. And thank you, council, so much for a very productive and very respectful meeting. This was really, really good. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Good evening, everyone.
Aye.